It's complicated how this all happened, Buffy, you know? It's kind of a long story.
Your new sidekick had a vision I was in it. You came to Sunnydale?
Okay, maybe not that long.
Sunnydale is the only place on Earth where a perfectly normal high school problem, like I forgot my homework, can escalate into I accidentally opened a portal to hell. And somehow, Buffy the Vampire Slayer made that feel relatable. Because that's the secret sauce. One minute it's monster fighting mayhem, the next it's painfully human. The show could roast itself, break your heart, then drop a demon metaphor so obvious you'd swear it was sponsored by your therapist. And behind the scenes, even weirder. We're talking secret celebrity producers, episodes built around silence, a musical that nearly gave the cast a collective panic attack, and a revival that refuses to stay buried. Because of course it does. So grab your stakes, your sarcasm, and your emotional support leather jacket. We're counting down 15 weird facts about Buffy the Vampire Slayer. From, wait, that's real? To, how was this even allowed on TV? 15. Buffy was built to flip a horror cliche, and the show basically rewrote its own origin. At its core, Buffy started as a simple mission statement. Take the classic horror setup, the helpless blonde walking into danger, and make her the one who turns around and wins. That idea existed before the series ever hit the WB, and it even showed up in the early 90s Buffy movie. But the TV version didn't just adapt the concept, it kind of reclaimed it. The series leaned harder into the metaphor. Monsters weren't just monsters. They were puberty, heartbreak, addiction, grief, loneliness, peer pressure, with fangs. And instead of playing Buffy as a one-note action hero, the show made her tired, funny, stubborn, brave, and occasionally very done with everyone's nonsense. The big twist wasn't vampires. It was that the Slayer still had to pass exams, pay bills, and survive her friends' terrible decisions. So if you've only ever seen the title and assumed it was campy fluff, surprise. Buffy is basically a Trojan horse for feelings, with a side of roundhouse kicks. 14. Dolly Parton had a behind-the-scenes connection to Buffy, and most fans didn't know for years. Yes, that Dolly Parton. The country music legend, the national treasure, the woman who could probably slay a vampire with pure charisma alone. Behind the scenes, Dolly's production company was involved with Buffy, which means while Buffy was fighting demons on screen, Dolly was helping keep the lights on in the real world. And the best part? For a long time, tons of fans had absolutely no clue. It became one of those, wait, what? Facts that people discovered years later and immediately reacted like they'd just found a secret room in the library. It's hilarious to imagine the overlap. Somewhere out there is a universe where Buffy bursts into the bronze, dusts a vampire, and Dolly's voice echoes from the heavens saying, "That's my girl." Even better, stories have floated around about Dolly quietly supporting the cast from afar, because that's exactly the kind of wholesome twist you'd expect from someone who radiates kindness as a lifestyle. The Buffyverse is full of surprises, but Dolly Parton helped produce this might be the most delightful one. 13. There's an unaired Buffy pilot, and Willow wasn't Willow yet. Before Buffy became the iconic version you know, quips, stakes, leather pants, existential dread, it had an earlier form, an unaired pilot that's basically the show's prototype build. And in that version, Willow wasn't played by Allison Hannigan. The role was originally cast with a different actress, and the vibe is noticeably different. Same character name, same basic friend group setup, but it feels like you're watching an alternate timeline where Sunnydale is slightly off. Like the Hellmouth is still warming up. Unaired pilots are fascinating because they reveal what a show thought it was going to be. You can spot the pieces that survived and the parts that got upgraded. With Buffy, the final series didn't just become more polished, it became sharper, funnier, and more emotionally dangerous. The chemistry locked in, The tone clicked, and Willow became that Willow. Nervous, brilliant, loyal, and eventually one of the most powerful characters in the entire story. So yeah, somewhere in the Buffy archives is a beta test version of the Scooby Gang, and it's weirdly comforting to know even legendary shows had to evolve into themselves. 12. That instantly recognizable theme song came from a real band, and it got upgraded later. The Buffy theme is one of those openings that hits like a nostalgia flashbang. 2 seconds in, and your brain is already doing the previously on voice in your head. That theme came from the band Nerf Herder, which somehow makes perfect sense, because the song feels like it was engineered to sound like late 90s cool. It's surfy, punchy, a little chaotic, like it drank 3 energy drinks and decided to fight evil. But here's the weird part. The theme didn't stay exactly the same forever. After the show found its rhythm, the music got adjusted, re-recorded, and tweaked. So later seasons have a slightly different, more refined version of the same iconic sound. Most people don't notice it right away because your brain is too busy going, "Buffy's on," like it's a Pavlovian response. It's the perfect little metaphor for the whole show. Buffy started scrappy, then grew into something bigger without losing its identity. Same vibe, sharper edges, like Buffy herself, still the Slayer, just with more emotional baggage and better technique. 11. Buffy switching networks was basically a full-blown TV custody battle. Today, shows hop between platforms like it's normal. Back then, a network switch was like watching your favorite band announce they're leaving mid-tour and taking the drummer with them. Buffy started on the WB, then later moved to UPN, and it was a massive deal at the time. Fans worried the show would change, get censored, lose its tone, or just implode from the logistics alone. Because it wasn't just new channel, same show. It was contracts, schedules, marketing, and a totally different corporate vibe behind the curtain. And the move didn't happen in a vacuum. Angel was still its own thing, living in a slightly different TV ecosystem. Suddenly, crossovers and shared universe moments became way harder to pull off, not because the characters didn't want to see each other, but because television business is a demon with paperwork. The wildest part is that Buffy survived the move. It didn't just keep going, it stayed culturally loud. Love or hate certain late season choices. The fact that it navigated that network shift at all is kind of miraculous. Sunnydale had monsters. The real fight was broadcast logistics. 10. Hush was made to prove Buffy could work without its biggest weapon, dialogue. Buffy is famous for its language, fast jokes, painful honesty, dramatic speeches, and that very specific, "I'm terrified, but I'm going to roast you anyway" energy. So the show decided to flex by taking most of that away. In Hush, the town loses its voices. Not in a cute, quiet episode way. In a full-on nightmare scenario where nobody can scream, warn each other, or even argue properly. And suddenly, the show has to communicate through expressions, gestures, panic, and pure dread. It shouldn't work. It works too well. The episode turns silence into a weapon. The gentlemen glide around like a Victorian sleep paralysis hallucination, and everything feels exposed because the characters can't hide behind banter. Even the humor changes. Physical comedy, misunderstandings, and frantic miming replace the usual verbal sparring. It's still Buffy, but it's like the volume is turned down while the tension spikes through the roof. If you ever needed proof the show wasn't just witty writing, Hush is Exhibit A. It's basically Buffy saying, "Oh, you like my dialogue? Cool. Watch me terrify you without it." 9. The musical episode wasn't a gimmick. It was a cast endurance test. A musical episode sounds fun until you remember one small detail. Your cast has to sing and dance. On a TV schedule, while still filming a regular season, and not all of them signed up to be Broadway ready. Once More, with Feeling, didn't just happen. It was months of vocal training, choreography, rehearsals, and the kind of behind-the-scenes stress that makes you stare at a wall and whisper, "Why are we doing this?" Some cast members had dance backgrounds, some didn't. Some were excited, some were terrified, and the episode demanded a lot. Big emotions, tricky staging, and songs that weren't just filler. The musical numbers had to carry plot, reveal secrets, and push characters into painful honesty. Which is a very rude thing to do in song form, by the way. And that's why it works. It's not Buffy but singing. It's Buffy using music as a trapdoor. Characters literally can't avoid the truth because the format forces it out of them. The episode is fun, yes, but it's also emotionally brutal in that classic Buffy way where you laugh, and then realize you're laughing directly over heartbreak. It's ambitious TV. Also, imagine rehearsing all that, and still having to fight a demon the next day. 8. The body removes the usual TV safety net, music that tells you how to feel. Most shows use music like emotional training wheels. Sad scene? Here come the strings. Shocking moment? Hit the dramatic bass note. Your brain gets guided gently into the correct feeling. The body takes those training wheels, throws them into the hellmouth, and dares you to cope. The episode is about grief. Real, human, sudden grief. And one of the most haunting choices is the lack of comforting background score. Instead, you get ordinary sounds, footsteps, breathing, silence, the awkward pauses where nobody knows what to say. It makes everything feel exposed, like you're in the room with the characters and you can't escape. And that's the point. Grief doesn't arrive with a soundtrack. It arrives with numbness, confusion, and little stupid details you notice because your brain can't process what just happened. The episode captures that time is stuck feeling, where everything is both too fast and too slow. It's also a masterclass in how Buffy could switch genres without warning. One week, monsters. Next week, life. And life is the scarier monster because you can't stake it. You can't punch it, and you can't quip your way out of it. The body isn't weird because it's flashy. It's weird because it's honest. 7. Sunnydale High is a real high school, and it's basically Hollywood's favorite campus. Sunnydale High looks like the perfect TV high school. Dramatic entrance, big staircases, and the kind of architecture that screams, important plot things happen here. That's because it's real. Exterior shots for Sunnydale High were filmed at Torrance High School in California, a place with a long history of being used for film and television, which means there's a good chance you've seen it in other shows and never realized you were revisiting the Hellmouth. There's something hilarious about that. Imagine being a student there, walking to class like it's normal, while a crew sets up lights because today, your school is about to become ground zero for a demon attack. Again. It also explains why Sunnydale High feels so grounded. The show's world is supernatural, but the setting often feels authentic because it is an actual, physical place. The lockers look like lockers. The courtyard looks like a courtyard. And that reality makes the fantasy pop harder. It's one of those behind-the-scenes details that turns the show into a weird scavenger hunt. Fans visit filming locations like pilgrimages, because it's not just a set. It's a real building that helped sell the illusion of Sunnydale being a place where teen drama and apocalypse-level danger can share the same hallway. 6. The graveyard scenes were a mix of real locations and a controlled, Buffy-friendly cemetery setup. A lot of Buffy happens in cemeteries, which makes sense. Vampires don't exactly hang out at brunch spots. But filming in real cemeteries is a logistical nightmare. You've got restrictions, weather, noise, public access, and the general awkwardness of staging a demon fight next to someone's peaceful resting place. So the show did what smart productions do. It mixed real cemetery filming with a more controllable setup. Some scenes were shot at actual cemeteries, and a lot of the ongoing graveyard action was handled with a Buffy-friendly cemetery space where they could control lighting, stage stunts, and shoot all night without worrying about accidental daylight, traffic sounds, or random joggers wandering through your vampire apocalypse. That's why the graveyard feels like its own character. It's consistent, familiar, and designed for action. You can tell it's built for the show's rhythm. Enter, banter, fight, dust, leave, sometimes within 2 minutes. Also, let's give the set designers their flowers. They made one cemetery feel like a whole ecosystem of mausoleums, crypts, and ominous corners. Sunnydale has a lot of problems. But one thing it has in abundance is excellent cinematic graveyard real estate. 5. Buffy literally became an academic subject, like with journals and conferences. Some shows get fan theories. Buffy got syllabi. Over time, Buffy studies became a real thing, an academic lane where people analyze the show's themes, language, ethics, gender politics, horror metaphors, and narrative structure. There are journals, essays, and full-on conferences where scholars gather to discuss the Slayer like she's Shakespeare with better boots. And honestly, it tracks. The show is a buffet of big ideas hiding inside Monster of the Week plots. You can watch it as pure entertainment, but you can also peel it back and find layers about power, identity, trauma, friendship, and the cost of being the chosen one. Even the way characters talk became a thing people named and studied. Buffy helped popularize that hyper-specific, self-aware, joke-packed style that a lot of later shows borrowed. You'll see echoes of it all over modern TV. It's also a weirdly perfect legacy. A show about teenage life being terrifying became something people examined seriously because it captured something real. Vampires were the fun part. The writing was the weapon. So yes, somewhere out there, someone earned academic credit for being obsessed with Buffy. Respect. 4. The HD upgrade turned into a controversy, because sharper isn't always better. You'd think Buffy in HD would be an automatic win. Clearer picture, nicer visuals, modern presentation, easy. Except, not always. When the show was re-released in remastered forms, fans noticed issues that weren't just nitpicks. Framing changes messed with composition. Color grading drifted from the original mood. Some shots looked oddly bright, like vampires were about to burst into flames because someone accidentally turned night scene into late afternoon picnic. There were also moments where widening or reframing the image revealed things you were never meant to see. Edges of sets, production elements, stuff that breaks the illusion, which is the exact opposite of what a remaster is supposed to do. And the reason it stings is because Buffy is a show where atmosphere matters. The lighting, the shadows, the color tone, those are part of the storytelling. Change them, and you subtly change the emotion of entire scenes. It's one of the rare cases where fans argue, please give us the older, lower quality version, because it's the real version, which is such a Buffy mood. Perfection comes with a curse, and improvement can summon demons you didn't plan for. 3. After the network split, Buffy and Angel crossovers became a lot harder to pull off. Once Angel spun off, the Buffyverse became a true shared universe. 2 shows, 2 story engines, 1 big supernatural ecosystem. And for a while, the crossover potential felt endless. Then, reality arrived with a clipboard. When Buffy switched networks and Angel didn't, crossovers weren't just a creative decision anymore. They were a business problem. Different networks meant different priorities, different permissions, and different logistical headaches. Even if the writers wanted characters to pop in and out, TV politics doesn't care about soulmates, destiny, or the fact that fans were screaming, "Just talk to each other." That's why, as the series went on, the 2 shows started feeling more separate. Not because the universe stopped connecting, but because coordinating those connections became way more complicated behind the scenes. And it created this weird emotional effect for viewers. Characters who were deeply tied together suddenly felt like they lived in parallel worlds. which, ironically, fits the Buffyverse vibe. The Hellmouth can open portals to other dimensions, but apparently the hardest portal to open is the one between corporate agreements. So, if you ever wondered why certain obvious crossover moments didn't happen, the answer isn't magic. It's paperwork, the true final boss. 2. Buffy didn't really end in 2003. It just changed form. The TV finale feels like an ending. Big climax, big choice, big new era energy. But the Buffy story didn't stay finished. Over time, the Buffyverse continued in expanded forms, especially in comics that pick up after the show and keep the world moving forward. It's basically what happens when a universe refuses to stop. New threats, bigger mythology, and storylines that TV budgets could never have pulled off at the time. That continuation is part of why Buffy stays alive in fandom culture. It didn't become a sealed time capsule. It became a living myth that kept evolving. New stories, reinterpretations, and new ways to revisit the characters without pretending the original never happened. And that's the key. Buffy isn't beloved because it's perfect. It's beloved because it's elastic. It can be horror, comedy, romance, tragedy, coming of age, apocalypse fantasy, and still feel like itself. So when people say Buffy ended, the more accurate statement is Buffy stopped airing on TV. The Slayer's world kept moving, because in Sunnydale, closure is rare, and endings are usually just a dramatic pause before the next thing crawls out of the ground. 1. Buffy is coming back. Again, and this time it's a very real, very serious project. Buffy's whole deal is refusing to stay dead, so it's only fitting that the franchise is stepping back into the spotlight. As of 2025, a new Buffy project has been in active development, with a major creative team attached. The plan isn't just redo the old show shot for shot, it's positioned as a continuation that brings the Buffyverse forward, with a new generation in the mix, and Sarah Michelle Gellar involved in a returning capacity. That's the part that makes longtime fans sit up straight, because Buffy isn't just a character, she's a cultural imprint, and bringing her back isn't something you do casually. It's the kind of move that only works if the story has a reason to exist beyond nostalgia. What's especially interesting is that this revival energy is happening in an era where reboots are everywhere, and audiences are pickier than ever. People don't just want a reunion, they want a point. They want the show to mean something now, the way it meant something then. So the weirdest Buffy fact might be the most Buffy fact of all. The Hellmouth may be closed, but the Buffyverse is still breathing. And somewhere, a vampire just felt a chill, because the Slayer's shadow is back on the wall. So that's 15 weird facts from the Buffyverse, from secret producers to silent horror to the musical episode that should have come with a warning label. Now, I need to know, what's the most Buffy episode to you? The one you'd show someone to explain the show's vibe in one hit. Drop it in the comments. And if you learned something new today, hit like, subscribe, and tell me what series you want the next Weird Facts deep dive on.